And in conforming, you discard anything that doesn't fit the image you're trying to project. But your psyche keeps the receipts. Everything you abandon for the sake of approval goes into the shadow. Your defiance, your vulnerability, even your joy. John once shared the story of a woman who spent her life as a caretaker. She was loved and admired by all, seen as a saint. But inside, she was filled with quiet rage, not because she hated caring for others, but because no one had ever cared for her, and she had never asked. Her shadow was her unmet need, and it only began to heal when she dared to express it. To bring light to the shadow is to begin the work of wholeness, and that work starts with radical honesty. Ask yourself, what am I hiding? What am I afraid others might see? What parts of myself do I find unacceptable? The answers may not come easily, but the act of asking is the start. Most people spend their lives trying to escape their shadow. But the paradox is, your shadow is the path to your soul. The deeper you go, the more you find what is real. John taught that the journey of adulthood is not about building a better mask, but removing it entirely. The first half of life is about identity, image, and ambition. The second half is about integration, surrender, and simplicity. Not less of you, but more of you. He once likened the soul to a forest. In the day, it seems safe and manageable, but at night, the trees become unfamiliar, the paths uncertain. Yet it is in that darkness that the ancient wisdom lives. The shadow is not the enemy of the self. It is the beginning of the self. When we deny our pain, we deny our depth. When we deny our flaws, we deny our fullness. Real healing doesn't come from becoming perfect. It comes from becoming whole. And wholeness requires that we make peace with every part of us, even the parts we've tried to hide. The modern world offers endless distractions to keep us from ourselves. Social media, status games, curated identities. But beneath all that noise is the quiet voice of the soul asking to be heard. That voice will not shout, it will whisper, and the shadow is how it speaks. To walk this path is not easy. It requires courage. Not the courage to fight, but the courage to feel. To sit with discomfort, to admit what we don't know, to forgive what we are not proud of. But those who do this work find something more valuable than confidence. They find authenticity. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you pretend to be, not who you wish you were, but who you already are, beneath the fear, beneath the shame, beneath the shadow." John Marklin passed away in his 80s, peacefully and, by all accounts, fulfilled. He never sought fame, but his students speak of him with reverence. He gave them permission to be real, to be flawed, to be human. So if you're listening to this and you feel the weight of unspoken parts, take heart. You are not broken. You are unfinished, and the shadow is not the sign of your failure. It is the invitation to your wholeness. Own your shadow, and you will find your gold. Face your darkness, and you will reclaim your light. That is the work, that is the journey, that is the way home. Then there is the religio-philosophical Hermetica, concerned with metaphysical questions, spiritual salvation, and the soul's journey. These texts, including the Corpus Hermeticum and the Asclepius, were composed between the 1st and 3rd centuries CE and take the form of dialogues between Hermes and his students. They emphasize inner transformation and the realization of divine unity. In Hermetic thought, salvation is not about obedience to dogma, but awakening to one's divine nature. Humanity, in this view, is a spark of the divine mind, temporarily embodied but capable of returning to its source. The universe is not fallen or sinful, but alive and intelligent, a reflection of the One. Hermetic teachings often speak of emanation, the idea that all things flow outward from a single divine principle. The human being mirrors this structure, carrying within the same layers of existence that constitute the cosmos. This profound sense of correspondence leads the seeker to view knowledge as sacred, and every discipline, from astronomy to medicine, as a path to the divine. One of the key challenges in engaging with Hermetic texts today is finding translations that convey not just their meaning, but their inspiration. For many modern readers, the Kybalion serves as an accessible entry point. Written in the early 20th century by the mysterious Three Initiates, it distills many Hermetic principles in a format familiar to readers of New Thought literature. However, the Kybalion is not an ancient text and incorporates concepts not found in classical Hermetica. It remains influential for its clarity and accessibility, but those seeking the historical core of Hermeticism should turn to primary sources. The most authoritative modern translation is Brian P. Copenhaver's Hermetica, which includes the Corpus Hermeticum and the Asclepius, alongside scholarly commentary. For those who wish to go further, Hermetica II by M. David Litwa provides translations of additional fragments, including the poetic and symbolic Kore Kosmou, or Daughter of the Cosmos. This fascinating text asserts that all forms of knowledge, scientific, magical, and philosophical, play a role in the soul's journey toward salvation. Other significant sources include the Armenian definitions of Hermes Trismegistus to Asclepius, the Oxford and Vienna fragments, and the excerpts preserved in the anthology of Stobaeus. Scholars like Garth Fowden in the Egyptian Hermes and Kevin Van Bladel in his studies on late antique Alexandria have deepened our understanding of how Hermeticism developed as a unique blend of Egyptian religious thought and Greek philosophical inquiry. Their work shows that even if the Hermetic writings were recorded in the early centuries CE, their core concepts, unity of being, divine reason, spiritual ascent, are rooted in much older traditions. Hermeticism, then, is not an isolated system, but a confluence of perennial themes that echo through Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, Sufism, and Kabbalah. What makes Hermeticism enduring is its adaptability. It can speak to the scientist, the mystic, the philosopher, and the artist. It doesn't require belief in dogma, but invites personal exploration, whether through meditative contemplation, ritual practice, or intellectual study. The Hermetic path opens doors to a multi-dimensional experience of reality. In a world often fractured by conflicting ideologies and distracted